Hello, and welcome to Convinced Catholicism, a place for all things Catholic. Today, I have a rather interesting and intriguing book, which is the Book of Common Prayer, as proposed in 1928. And as you can see from the subtext here, it includes the lessons for matins and even song throughout the year, which means that it has a full lectionary, as you can see there. This book is not to be confused with the American 1928 Book of Common Prayer, which of course does have some similarities to it. This book was meant to be a revision and replacement of the 1662 Book of Common Prayer, which is still the official prayer book in England today. So before we actually get into the book, let's take a look at a few of the dimensions. So it's just about 5¼ inches wide, 8 inches tall, and just about 2½ inches thick. So this book, there are some people that I know pray from this book, but this book is meant much more as a curiosity piece than, say, something that you're going to be bringing with you around. And even on the desk, this is a little bit awkward because of how thick the book actually is, and because the binding is not the greatest. This is by Canterbury Press, which also does the English Office Book and other things like that. And I find that their books typically lean more toward the print-on-demand quality than anything else. So we can see that this book was, of course, originally published in 1928, but this is a reprinting from 2008, so some sort of an anniversary, as we can see. Let's take a look at this introduction. In July 1927, a measure was passed by the Church Assembly, the predecessor to the General Synod, to authorize the use of a prayer book which had been deposited with the clerk of the parliaments, referred to in the measure of the deposited book. The measure and the book had been previously approved by large majorities of the convocations of Canterbury and York, a resolution, blah, blah, blah. But unfortunately, the House of Lords and the House of Commons did not see that the book was made. And this book actually is just interesting as a historical thing, because England's official religion to this day, even though it's a minority at this point, is the Church of England. And the government, in effect, is in control of it, with the king being the sovereign leader of it. And it's interesting to see that a government, from an American perspective at least, and from other perspectives, a government can somehow change or alter the course of the religion. So this is an interesting book in that sense. So what makes this book different from the 1662? So first of all, this is pretty much the 1662 in its entirety, with the addition of alternative prayers for and Eucharist for public or private devotion, right? So we see that there's and you can tell that this is a facsimile, right? This is a preface from 1928, preface from 1662, and then we can see that it's kind of the same. Wait a minute, look. Table of Lessons, 1662. Table of Lessons, 1871. Order for morning prayer, order for evening prayer. Introduction alternatives here. And then there's also going to be alternatives for the administration or the ministration of the Holy Communion, so on and so forth. Alternative orders for all the sacraments, so on and so forth. And this is sort of the most interesting edition, and this is something that we see in later editions of the prayer book, including the 1979, in order for Prime, in order for Compline, and Collects, Epistles, and Gospels of Lesser Feasts. So let's take a look at morning prayer, because that's kind of the classic example. So let's go to morning prayer and compare the two. We have a table of contents. We can look at that, right? So the order for morning prayer is page 69. So here we have the order for morning prayer, 1662, which means that someone who owns this book can do the 1662 order for morning prayer, right? We have the opening sentences, which are to be chosen when they're appropriate, the absolution, and the for the public confession, right? And then we have the inviatory of the Church of England's Book of Common Prayer, Te Deum, Benedicte Omniopera, Benedictus Jubilate Deo, so on and so forth. And then we have the prayers to so-and-so, and right, and then we also see prayers to the royal family. And now let's go to the introduction to morning or evening prayer. We see many more opening sentences. This is for the 1928 alternative version. Penitence, worship, Advent, Christmas, Epiphany, Lent, Passion Time, Good Friday, Easter Eve and Easter, Ascension Day, Whitsunday, which is Pentecost, and so on. And then we have the alternative order for morning prayer. Notice that it comes with, O Lord, open thou our lips, and our mouth shall show forth thy praise. God make speed to save us. O Lord, make haste to help us. We don't have, and I want to show you the language here as well. This seems a lot more skippable, I guess you could say. Something that the layman wouldn't feel so obligated to do, rather than say the 1662. Venite, and then we see that it's kind of broken up on the days hereafter named, before this psalm and after the Gloria Patri, which follows it, may be sung or said in the inviatory. So we can see that's that breakup there. We also see Psalm 51 as an optional thing, so on and so forth, right? So we can see that the 1928 proposed is not so dissimilar to the American 1928. We also see that there's an alternative calendar or lectionary. So let's go to that. An alternative table of lessons, page 30. So here we have the alternative table of lessons, and it seems to be a bit more brief and a bit more themed toward the season. We can see Luke is Advent, and that makes a lot of sense, right? And Christmas, we get Genesis, and so on, right? So it seems a bit more themed. Let's go ahead and take a look at the lectionary. So we can see here that it's based off of the Sundays of whatever holiday or season it is, and then Saturday Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and so on and so forth, right? It would start on Sunday. And we can see that the readings are sometimes a little bit lengthy, but honestly, Sunday after Ascension, Matins' first lesson is a little bit lengthy, but it also has a shorter option. And Matins' second lesson, John 14, 1 through 14, is rather doable. And there's also the alternative, which I would imagine is a year 1, year 2 type of deal. Very similar to what the Catholic Church has with the personal ordinariate. This book, in many ways, is very similar to Divine Worship Daily Office Commonwealth Edition, in that it has all the readings and so on. This is a very interesting book. Again, I personally, as a person who considers the size of their prayer book, considers what types of prayers there are in there, as a Catholic person, I would not particularly choose this as my prayer book. I don't think that there's anything in here besides, say, the Articles of Faith, which is, say, to borrow a term from them, repugnant to the faith of the Catholic Church. But when you're praying the office, there's nothing wrong with it. After all, the personal ordinariate uses it, and all Catholics are invited to at least try it. And so there's nothing wrong with the contents in this book. I would just say that it's really, really, really bulky. The binding is not very good quality. It's not meant to be. It's meant to be a curiosity piece. And if you are a high church Anglican, if you are a Catholic who's just interested in learning about other faiths and ecumenism in general, or if you're a personal ordinariate and you want to see the history of your tradition, this is a great book for you. The Amazon link will be made available. And I also recommend that you take a look at my locals page and see if you want to contribute or not. It seems that, this book was trying to appease all people, but politics got in the way of it, and it would have been really interesting to see this as the main book of the Church of England. I wonder what would have changed or would have stayed the same. Something else before I go, I want to point out is that if you go to the 1928 Book of Common Prayer, it has a lectionary with, rather than the 30-day Psalter, right? So you can see your 28 evening prayer, whatever. It has like 1 or 2 psalms that you would pray per morning and evening prayer, and that would be kind of a related lectionary, and that's not in this. This is, again, a different book from the American Episcopalian 1928 Book of Common Prayer. This is the Church of England proposed 1928. Thank you very much. May God bless you, and enjoy the rest of your day. Take care.